So what was your motivation for making this donation and renaming the school?
Well, I have been involved with the school, re-involved since graduation, for about, 13, 14 years. I got reconnected. And I joined really through the chairmanship of the Partners for Progress Capital Campaign, and then Dr. Triney asked me if I would be on the board, and Governor Warner and then Governor Kane both appointed me to 2 4-year terms. And then Dr. Triney asked me to chair the advisory board here at the School of Mass Communications, which is about to have a new name. And so I found a great amount of satisfaction, because in the capital campaign I made a donation back then. And I talked about it in my commencement speech, that I started thinking for the first time in my life, what would my life have been like, but not for this privileged education here at VCU, which allowed me to learn the television business, not only taking classes here, but working part-time on Channel 12. So I had a unique education of getting the real world experience as well as the classroom experience. So I decided then to, and actually I said, well, if not someone like me, and if not now, then when? And that night I made a big donation to the school. And it was very surprising. Dr. Triney was very surprised at the time, and I only decided to do it that night while I was putting on my tuxedo at the hotel. And so, and since then I've done other things with the Alumni House and whatnot, but I love this place. And I really believe that my life would have been very different, but not for this education. And I've been very blessed in business to have had, some pretty good success, and I wanted to share that. And so I'm now retired. I'll be 68 years old soon. This marks my 50th year in the television business, going back to Channel 12 in 1963 when I came to college here. Can you believe it? And so I thought, I'm going to take a hunk of what I've earned in my life and earmark it for this school, and I hope that it can be a transformational gift that will help the school, in a number of ways, with our faculty, with our facilities, with fundraising, and I intend to, be a part of that. As you know, we're having a search now for a new director, and it's just a very exciting time. And there's so many mass comm schools around the country, or schools that teach some form of communications, journalism, public relations, advertising, mass communications. There are about 100 programs. And they all call themselves pretty much the same thing. So that's why we had, I worked closely with the current faculty, who I went to first, to make sure they agreed this was a good idea. Because if they didn't buy into it, then it made no sense. And everybody on the faculty seemed to think it was a great idea. And then we had to spend 6, 8 months going through the slow process of academia at a major university to get the buy-in from all the different constituencies, from the president to the rector to the dean to faculty senate to who knows what. And then eventually it has to go to SHEB. Of course, the Board of Visitors has to vote on it. And but it's a it's a big deal in my life, and I intend to continue as chair of the advisory board and help make this school one of the elite programs, hopefully, in the country. It's already a great program. And but if you don't come to work every day wanting to be better, then what's the point, right? So that's kind of it's a long answer to your question.
Now, why the shift to the School of Media and Culture instead of Mass Communications?
Well, it's what we're teaching here in these 3 silos of journalism, public relations, and advertising is no longer just mass anymore, as you well know. Let's face it. It's not so much the shotgun approach anymore as it is the rifle approach. It's actually both. And it's very different. The cheese has moved so much into how we distribute this content to people, both our journalism content, both our PR messages, and of course classic advertising. And it just no longer is done in a mass way. It's done a lot in a mass way, but it's done a lot in a very direct way, in social media and internet and guerrilla marketing on the streets of major cities. It's all kinds of stuff. And so to really understand who we're trying to reach, you know, it was my feeling and a number of colleagues I talked to that a name that more accurately reflects what we are teaching today and to our students going forward in the future is about media. It's about distribution. And media is about content and distribution, so that works. And then culture is, we really need to understand the culture of our customer. If you're a journalist, the culture of the people you're trying to meet, how are they getting this information? The culture out there in the advertising world of the various brands that we're selling. And then the culture of the constituencies we're trying to meet in the world of public relations to, you know, affect behavior and affect perception. So understanding culture is a very important part of what we're doing, because everything has changed so much and people are thinking and living in a different way. And so we thought that the name Media and Culture would better reflect, number one, what we're teaching here. And number two, we'd be the first school in the country to do something like this. So we felt it was kind of low-hanging fruit. Let's be the first one to make this move. And it will give us a great deal of attention. A lot of people will notice this. And we will, I'm sure the faculty will be doing lots of interviews long after I'm not around. Well, exactly what does media and culture mean? What is, you know, and it will give us an opportunity to talk about ourselves.
So how else, besides changing the name, do you see this whole process as changing our School of Mass Comm on the national stage?
Well, I think it has to do with, you know, getting out there with our new director and doing some fundraising and allowing us, through this gift and through future fundraising, to attend national conferences, excuse me, to attend national conferences, to go to international trips, to tell our story to similar schools around the world, to create an international presence for our school here at VCU, which is, you know, America is the gold standard for this kind of thing, you know, in many ways. And so I was just asked the other day to come speak to the students at St. Petersburg State University in Russia. And so, but then it takes money for our faculty to travel. It takes money for our faculty to go to these conferences. And also facilities. We'd like to spruce up the old Temple building and improve our facilities and give our students the best chance possible to succeed in life. And also, here's one of the big ones, is to create a placement center within the school, the new school, that will start working with our students, hopefully in their sophomore year. This is something I'm very passionate about. Because if you come here for 4 years and you spend whatever you spend, if you're a student, you know, in a dorm or something, you spend a lot of money to come here. At the end of 4 years, a lot of these students have borrowed money to pay for this, and they have a big bill. But if you don't come here and are dead serious, because this is like a high-class trade school in a way, because we're not. I always tell people, and I hope the people in the English department or biology department don't take this the wrong way. But this is not liberal arts. This is like a high-class trade school in a way. And if we're serious about it, then we should be teaching our students how to get a job when they walk out of the Richmond Coliseum in May of whenever, you know, when they get their diploma. And be thinking about that just as much as learning the skills of the craft that they've studied for 4 years. So that's a big, big issue with me. Is that we have an aggressive career placement center within the school. It could report to the university's placement center, but that it be here in our building.
Okay. And what would you say is your vision for the school once it's renamed and has this funding?
Well, you know, it has to then do the things and achieve the kind of metrics that give it national reputation. Things like the percentage of our students who graduate who go to work right away, the average salary of our students, how well attended is our career day when we have asked companies to come here in the 3 spaces of PR, journalism, and advertising. These are the ways you measure. These are the quantitative ways you measure. Some of the quantitative ways you measure. Our grade point average. these kind of things. But essentially, at the end of the day, is are we preparing students in journalism, PR, and advertising to get jobs? Bingo, and what are we doing to help them do that? And so that's my key wish. If we can do that and get higher retention rates from freshman to sophomore, sophomore to junior, junior to senior, these are all things that go into the metrics of success. They give you national reputation. And then, eventually, like many of our students have already done, wind up in great jobs and do wonderful things,
Okay, and what would you say is the biggest thing that your time at VCU did to help advance your career?
It's interesting. I took a class in my sophomore year. I came here in September of '64. I believe it was that long ago. And in advertising media, taught by a guy named Bob Hall, who was at the time media director at Cargill, Wilson & Egri, which was the precursor to the famous Martin Agency. And it lit my eyes went wide. I love this stuff. I love learning about it. It was something, it turned me on. And then my professor at the time, Jim Looney, who was here for many years, said there's a job out at Channel 12 putting up displays in the supermarket. So a bunch of us went out there and we all interviewed and they picked me. And I started putting up these supermarket displays, and that led to a job selling ads in between class to local Haverty's Furniture, Hawks Furniture, Mullen Brothers Auto Radio, CPD and Bolin. I remember all these clients I sold ads to. E.G. Bradley, Sport Cars over where the engineering school is. And so I had this from day one. I loved it. And so I was making $1.25 an hour. I made a commission of 5% on the sales. So I was making like $3-4 grand a year while I went to college here back in the 60s. It was great. And I said, wow, this is terrific. And so that really gave me a big advantage when I graduated, because then I went to work for NBC in Washington. They had never hired anybody my age before, but I already had 3 years of experience of media sales. And they thought, what the heck, let's give this guy a chance. He seems to, maybe he'll wake up our sales staff. And I did. And so that's how it worked. And really, and I think back on it, and that's what really motivated me to come home, so to speak. I live in California now, but Virginia will always be my home. And share my life's work with my alma mater. And you either feel that way or you don't. I don't know. Some people do, some don't. I did.